To preview the Thunder and Bucks in the NBA Cup Championship, bringing on Andrew Schlecht from The Athletic and the Down to Dunk podcast. All right, Andrew. So the Thunder are 20-5, best record in the Western Conference, third best record in the NBA, number 1 defensive rating, number 8 offensive rating. They haven't faced Giannis much in recent years at all. Only faced him once in the last 3 seasons. That was last March. Giannis had 30 points on 13 of 18, 19 rebounds. Bucks won that game, 118-93. So we don't have a lot of examples of what OKC may or may not do against this Bucks team. But I'm curious for your initial thoughts here with, you have Giannis, who might be the MVP, could be right going against SGA. What are your expectations for how the Thunder, with their league best defense, are going to try to defend and slow down Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Yeah, I think that it's certainly going to be by committee. It's not going to be just one guy. The Thunder don't have really one guy, because I think you'd like to have somebody that's bigger to defend Giannis, a guy that's like 6'8", 6'9", long arms, all of that. They don't really have that guy on the roster, but they do have Dort, who I think is going to probably get the primary assignment to begin with. Alex Caruso, if you watch the Bulls play the Bucks last year at all, Caruso got that assignment a lot and did quite well against Giannis. And so I think that they have multiple guys that they can throw on him. And if you think about the way that the Thunder defend in general, they pack the paint. Like they sell out to keep teams from getting into the paint. And that's kind of the perfect way to defend Giannis in general, is like you just need to keep him from getting paint touches. And that's the way that the Thunder like to defend. They give up the most corner threes in the league. They've done that for a while. And it's because of this defensive scheme that they have, where they like to pack the paint and recover. Obviously, the three-point shot is super valuable, and I think teams have figured that out. But I think that the Thunder and Mark Daigneault will tell you that something that's way more valuable is getting shots at the rim. And so they want to take that away as much as they can. And it starts with the perimeter defense, which the Thunder have 3 of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, and Dort, Cason Wallace, and Alex Caruso. Not also mention Jalen Williams. J-Dub has been an amazing defender so far this season. But then I just think that it's going to be by committee. You have Hartenstein that's going to be at the rim, and he's been fantastic for OKC on the defensive end. But it's going to be multiple guys. Even Kendrick Williams off the bench, I think, is going to get a crack at Giannis. So they're not short of guys that I think could do okay on Giannis, but it really will be by committee and then this through their scheming on the defensive end.
I think you're right, and that's what does make things interesting for a guy like Andre Jackson in this game, is Doc Rivers going to pull him quickly. We saw the Hawks on Saturday in the semifinals. They're helping off Andre Jackson in that game. Yeah. Again, trying to protect the paint. It's obviously easier said than done to keep Giannis away from the basket. And he's also added the mid-range, career high for mid-range this year. He had the beautiful fadeaway on a switch against Dyson Daniels late in that game as well. So Giannis is developing some counters, but obviously you're more than happy if Giannis is forced to take a 40% mid-range jumper rather than 70+% at the rim. And so that's where I think OKC, you're spot on. Maybe it's Caruso sometimes, maybe it's Kendrick Williams other times, maybe it's even a Jalen Williams on a switch defending Giannis on ball, but it's about Isaiah Hartenstein helping a bit off of Brook Lopez in the corner. It's about whoever that weak side help defender is against Andre Jackson collapsing together to slow down Giannis Antetokounmpo. With that said, though, Andrew, the Bucks have changed their team midway through. They had a horrific start this year. They got off to a horrible start. We see AJ Green replacing Pat Connaughton in the rotation. Andre Jackson playing more minutes. Taurean Prince is shooting the hell out of the ball this season after he replaced Jay Crowder in free agency. The Bucks are a better team right now than they were at the start of the year, and they're a different team than they were last year when Malik Beasley was starting. Now they have Gary Trent as well. Chris Middleton coming off the bench. They're a different team, but so is OKC. You mentioned Caruso, Hartenstein as well. This is a completely different team. Now, I think with Oklahoma City, we've seen them this year show the ability to play a bunch of different styles. They started the year with Chet Holmgren. They were absolutely unbelievable. He goes out injured, then they have to play with small ball for 6 or so games before Hartenstein came back. And then Isaiah Hartenstein comes back, and he has changed the way this team has looked offensively with his playmaking. What have you seen from Isaiah Hartenstein with how he's added a new layer to this Thunder offense?
Yeah, I remember the first game that he played, and we saw Shea and J-Dub come off of screens from Hartenstein, and it was almost like jarring for them because there hasn't been a screener like this in Oklahoma City since Steven Adams. Like they just don't have guys. They do a lot of guard to guard screening, which it allows you to get switches, but it doesn't always allow you to get a ton of space. And so the fact that you have this screener that comes in and he sets these just monster screens, and these guys can pull up from the mid range. They have a lane to the basket. They can take the pull up three. You know, they just have options. And I think that's really what he's given them. Is he's given them options, not only off of screens, but they love to throw the ball to him in the middle of the court and kind of allow him to operate. This team has a lot of guys that can really cut off ball. And so he's great at finding those guys. And then the lob threat, which is something the Thunder really could never figure out last year. You know, even to Chet, like it was very rare. And it was a kind of an ongoing joke that this might be one of the worst lob throwing teams in the NBA last year. And somehow they've kind of figured it out this year with Hartenstein. And some of that is with J-Dub. There's like this connection that I think everybody that is around the Thunder thought, okay, those two, there's something with just the basketball IQ between those two that I think they're going to figure something out. And we've started to see that a little bit. There's been a connection between those two that I think will continue to grow. And the fact that they have the lob threat, which I don't know which will help all that much tomorrow, just because the Bucks do such a good job of preventing just lobs and easy shots at the rim. But that lob connection has been something that the Thunder have started to really tap into that they haven't really had. And so just having a big guy that obviously I think the rebounding is probably the first thing people think of when they think about adding this guy, because the Thunder were such a poor defensive rebounding team. But he adds that dimension. He adds just size, and he's a smart player. Sam Presti said before the season that it was really funny because he said, we would have signed him if he was 6'8". And then like a couple minutes later, he like brought it up again. He was like, I think we would have signed him if he was 6'5", And like, I was like, how short does this guy have to be for you to still want him on your team? But they love his like just the way he plays. He just plays the right way. He's unselfish. He is a great defender. He gives them this dimension where the Thunder, I think, had a really good fastball last year. And it was that team with Chet spreading the court 5 out. And it was really good. But they didn't really have something else to throw at teams. Like once teams figured that out in some capacity, they were not as difficult to defend. Now that you can throw Hartenstein out there and you have this 5 out, and the Thunder did this against when they played in that cup game the other night, when the opposing team would go big, they would go small. And they do this a lot. It's like anytime an opposing team goes big, like especially off the bench, the Thunder aren't like, okay, we need a big guy to match up with them. The Rockets threw Steven Adams out there, and you think like, okay, well, the Thunder needs somebody big. No, every time Steven Adams touched the court, who touched the court? It was Kenrich Williams. They love to like invert that. They want teams to adjust to them. And it's just been interesting to see that because now they have all these different ways they can play, and their hand has been forced, like you mentioned. Like they've had these like 3 iterations that have happened throughout the season so far, and they've been forced into that. But they figured out how to do it, how to play in all these different ways. And I think like once Chet comes back, once they get toward the playoffs, they're going to be able to kind of hopefully fine tune that heading into the playoffs, and then you can play with anybody.
I think you mentioned it, the how they're dictating the way they want to play. They're not reacting to what the other team is doing. They're saying, no. You're going to adjust to us.
Yeah,
and that's what
100%.
Mark Daigneault, OKC's head coach, can now do with all their options. And to me, that's what makes it most exciting when Chet eventually returns later in the season, because then you could go with the 2 bigs and maintain spacing, maintain skill. Chet can be that third scorer on the floor. He can be a spot-up shooter. He can be a versatile defender as well. So you add that later in the season when already so far this season, they've played 635 minutes without Hartenstein or without Holmgren. They have a plus 8.5 net rating according to PBV stats. And lineups with just Hartenstein, no Chet, which is, they've not shared the floor at all this year. They are plus 13.8 on the floor. Their defense has improved. Chet Holmgren without Isaiah Hartenstein, 265 minutes. They're a plus 16.1. So all 3 iterations have been absolutely dominant. And so later in the year, you add Chet. It's just going to be a fourth one that Dagnall can pull out come playoff time. And that's where I think against the Milwaukee Bucks in this playoff-like style setting, it's single elimination. It's different than a full 7-game series where you make adjustments and all that. But these teams have days to prepare for their opponent. You damn well know both these sides, like they did for each of the matchups. On Saturday, they're all prepped. Tonight, on Tuesday, they're going to be all prepped. So I think you're going to see a good example of how OKC and Milwaukee too, but for OKC especially with all their versatility, might change things up mid-game. They might. Like if you just see the Bucks out there, if they go with Giannis at the 5, that doesn't necessarily mean the Thunder will have to go big. Maybe they try to go a bit small and change things up.
Yeah, Mark likes to play with lineups. Like that's for sure something that, if you've covered a Mark Dagnall team for any period of time, is like they like to be different. They like to throw out different lineups. The starting lineup is not always going to be out there after halftime. They like to change that up at half. And so we know that he's going to change things up. I mean, their rookie AJ Mitchell has played a significant role for them off the bench all season.
He's good, man.
He's a really good player.
For people who don't know anything about AJ Mitchell, can you describe what his game is like? Because a ton of fans are like, who?
Yeah. AJ, the thing that sticks out about AJ, and this stuck out from the moment that I met him, is like he is just so smart. He's a 6'5" guard that can handle the ball. He can play off ball a little bit. I worried a little bit how he would hold up defensively, but he's done really well. He just competes, and he can do a little bit of everything. The thing that the Thunder, if you're talking about like what do the Thunder need? Well, they probably need a little bit more juice off the bench with like a guy that can get his own shot. And AJ Mitchell has answered that call a few times this season. He's just an NBA player. Like he can handle the ball in a pick and roll. He can get to the hoop. He can shoot the 3. It's been kind of big for the Thunder this season to have him. They drafted Nikola Topic in the lottery last year, and he's been hurt and, is not going to play this whole season. And to have a guy in this guard position that can come in and play right away has been interesting. And the Thunder, the way that they do film is that they break off into different groups, and the group that AJ Mitchell's a part of is like in this quote unquote creator group that is with Shea and J-Dub. And it's those 3 that will break off and go watch film together. And, AJ is like one of the creators on the team. And so for him to do it in his rookie season on this really good team, he's on a 2-way contract, which you'd expect those guys to play with the G League a lot. He hadn't been called down to the G League once so far this season, which I think is really interesting and indicative of how he's played so far.
It's interesting to me that you said how if the Thunder need one thing, it's probably that juice off the bench, and how AJ Mitchell has helped answer that call with his abilities as a rookie. He's an upperclassman. He was a junior at UC Santa Barbara last year, and he improved as a shooter. He got better in the ways that he needed to, and that's carried over straight away to the NBA. Now, you did say something earlier, though. You said the one thing the Thunder really don't have is that kind of 6'8", 6'9", long-armed defender. What do they have that helps compensate for that? Like, could this be one of those matchups with Giannis Antetokounmpo where it exposes the fact that they don't have that player right now, and that all like Wallace and Caruso, all due respect to those guys, Dort, they're all incredible, but maybe that is one missing piece.
Yeah, I mean, how they compensate for it is that they have these like ultra competitive guards that have long arms and can stay on wings. And while they don't have like these wing size guys, I think the Thunder and the front office like really believe that those guys defend just as well as a 6'8" guy could.
Can Chet be that too, Andrew? Like when Chet returns later in the season, let's say he's playing in 2 big lineups with Hartenstein.
Yeah.
Can Chet be more of that big, long-armed perimeter guy in that role?
I actually think he can. I think a lot of teams thought they could put him on an island last year. They would try to get the Chet switch out to the perimeter, and he held up really well. I think that they want to explore the thought of him being like a 4 and what that could look like. I think they know that some of their best lineups are with him at 5, just because it is so hard to match up with the Thunder when he's at 5, because he can
5 out on offense and rim protection on defense.
Yes, and the fact that he can put the ball on the floor too and create a little bit on his own. I mean, it's just impossible to stop. But I do think that they want to explore like being this giant team, which they haven't done. You know, we haven't seen this team play big. They very rarely went to the J. Will Chet lineups last year, and I think that will change whenever Chet comes back, because Hartenstein is just different. He's bigger. He's a little bit more skilled. He's been really good for OKC, and so I think that. Yes, I think we will see Chet as like a quote unquote wing out there at some point. I don't know how much they'll use it. I think that they will probably use the opportunity whenever Chet comes back to kind of slowly work him back in, and they'll have that opportunity just because they have Hartenstein. But I think that we will see that, and I don't know what that looks like. I'm really just intrigued to watch it.
Now, I mean, what is the timeline for him? Have they given any estimate at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thought, at least in my head, is that he'll probably be back post All-Star break. I think that he's going to play in a big chunk of games before the season's over. You know, he's standing on his own feet again. He doesn't have to have the crutches at all times. I think that he's pretty close to not being on crutches anymore. It's just
he traveled to Vegas too. Like he's with the team.
Yeah, he's here. He was in the locker room the other night, and so that's a great sign, because he hadn't really traveled all that much. He'd kind of been bedridden for a little bit, and he's in really good spirits. I think that as long as he heals, it's such a weird NBA injury. You know, when you look up the injury that he had, it's more of like a car crash injury than it is like a sports injury, and also. We're talking about a guy who's 7 feet tall, you know, lanky. There's probably not been a ton of people in the history of humanity that look like him that have had this specific injury. So I just don't know. I think the expectation or the hope is that he's back and can play in 20 to 30 games before the playoffs. But all that really depends on his body reacting in the way that is expected.
Now, I see in the background you have a T-Mobile Arena. You were in Las Vegas. Much better than my blurred background while I go through a move back here with a bunch of boxes behind me. You win the background battle today, and I lose most of them. For now. Just you wait. A great background is coming. But I'm curious. I was there last year in Vegas for the first year. It wasn't even called the NBA Cup yet. Still the in-season tournament. The NBA Cup, what's been the vibe around the games on these off days? We're recording this on Monday. What's Sunday and Monday like? Do you feel like there's a buzz from NBA fans at all, or is this just all hardcore fans on social media? Like, what's the impression in Vegas that you're feeling?
On game day, it was great. There were a ton of NBA fans everywhere on the streets. I thought it was a very, very fun environment. There are a lot more. When the NBA did not get the Golden State Warriors or the Knicks, I was like, okay. I was at that point, I was so intrigued to see what it looks like. Are there enough fans going to show up? Is this place going to be dead? What does this look like? Fans showed up, and the arena looked really bad at the start of the first game. It was a 1:30 tip Pacific, but by the end of Atlanta, Milwaukee is actually a pretty good crowd. And then I thought the crowd for Thunder Rockets was actually pretty good. But I'll tell you this, yesterday, just walking the streets of Vegas, you would have no clue there was an NBA event happening out there. There were a lot more football jerseys. I walked up and down the street. We were filming something, and I was looking for NBA jerseys. And KOC, try to guess how many NBA jerseys I saw in the course of 4 hours.
I'll take the under on whatever the over-under is. I'm going to take the under in a total of 3. in 4 hours?
I saw one, and I won't even make you guess who it was. It was actually a teal Cade Cunningham jersey that I saw.
That's so random.
It was super random. That was the only NBA jersey I saw.
And you know, a Pistons fan buying that ticket, he sure as hell knew that there wasn't going to be the Detroit playing there.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's going to be at the game tomorrow. That was a little strange, but overall, I've been really impressed with the people that have shown up. I'm just so intrigued to hear people's stories about like when they decided to buy the tickets and how they decided to be here. And so I stop and talk to fans. It was funny. I actually had a connecting flight in Houston from Oklahoma City on Saturday. And so I flew to Houston, and there were a ton of Rockets fans on that plane with me. And so I just was wanting to talk to all of them. Like, okay, like tell me about, your fandom with the Rockets and why you decided to fly to Vegas for this. And, people are very excited about the NBA Cup. I talked to some Thunder fans yesterday that are from New Zealand, that flew from New Zealand just to come to the NBA Cup. So people are showing up for this, and I've been impressed. I thought the crowd didn't quite know what to do at the beginning of the game, and part of that was it was so quiet. It was so quiet in the arena to start the game, and part of that was they weren't playing music. Usually there's music just playing all the time. A different song for each team as they're bringing the ball up the court. Probably too much music.
Cut it down. I'm anti-music during gameplay, but that's a different topic.
I turned to Joe Varden, who's sitting next to me, my colleague, and I was like, Joe, I can hear a pin drop in here right now. But he was like, but look at the stands. Like the stands are full. It was just that I don't think fans really knew how to react in this neutral site environment, because it was probably 50-50 with the fans, maybe like a little bit in favor of OKC for Rockets Thunder.
Was it full in the lower bowl, or how about the upper bowl as well?
Yeah, they were both pretty full.
Okay.
I was impressed. I thought we could be 60% full or something like that. That's kind of was my expectation, just because it's like last minute. How many Thunder and Rockets fans can you actually get to this game? But there were a lot. People showed up. I have friends of mine, like a few of my college friends, are flying in to watch the Cup championship. They fly in today, and they're like super pumped to go watch the Thunder. And so I do think that I was very skeptical. I honestly thought this wouldn't work as far as like a non-Lakers, non-Warriors, non-Knicks team, actually filling the arena. But, my expectation is that it'll be full tomorrow, and it'll be full of small market fans, which I think is pretty great if you're the NBA.
I mean, I was high on the NBA Cup before last season, just because I think these little, quote unquote gimmicks are better than the standard regular season in October, November, December. I think totally. It's just a step up from that. And over the course of time, my expectation is that this thing will grow. Summer League was not what it was today, even just 5, 6, 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. When I first started going to, I think my first Summer League was 2014 or 2015. It was not anywhere as busy as it's been the last 2, 3, or 4 years. That thing has grown a lot to become kind of like NBA Coachella. Mm-hmm. And so I think over the course of time, maybe the NBA Cup could become a place that, fans that aren't even fans of either team might decide to go to for a weekend in Vegas. I think the scheduling needs work. Like Saturday to Tuesday, that's too long. The 2 days between the games. The NBA needs to figure that out somehow. Maybe even if you have the losers play on one of the off days, something like that, just to fill a day, or even have some other teams come. I don't know. I just think having more teams maybe brings more fans, and then therefore you have a bigger event that fills the whole weekend. Because these 2 off days is, I don't know, it's a bit much. I think in Vegas, from my standpoint on media, it was just weird being there for that long. It's like, okay. That's all? 2 days off?
It feels like, and
we're strange.
Yeah, we're recording this on Monday. It feels like the game should be today. It has that feel to it. But what's also funny about the scheduling is that something that Thunder fans always do after a playoff game is that they will go to the airport after a road playoff game and meet the team at the airport and cheer them on and welcome them back home. But what's funny about this, and this is a scheduling thing that the NBA is going to have to figure out, because this is a mess, The Thunder have to be in Orlando on Thursday. And so they're not even going to go home. So they've got to fly from Vegas to Orlando, and they play a back-to-back. They play Orlando on Thursday. They play Miami on Friday. And so this is just like a scheduling just disaster for teams that make it this far. And like, obviously the Thunder want to win this thing, but I think there was always also this piece of it where it's like, hey, we absolutely want to win it. That would be great, but it could be rough. And I think that Thunder fans like should have the expectation that after, I think some of the air is going to get let out of the balloon a little bit after this cup final, because like there's so much like energy and effort and everything that goes into this. And then like, hey, you know what? You got to go play real games again. And you don't get a break before you go do that. And in fact, you have to go play a back-to-back right out of this. I think it's going to be really tough. And I think that's something the NBA has to figure out, because I think the same would have happened for like the Warriors had a really tough road schedule if they would have made it here. Like it's not just a Thunder thing. The NBA is going to have to figure out how to deal with this. Also, I would say, I think the winner of the cup should count on their regular season, by the way. And
why does it not?
The loss shouldn't count. I would say the loss shouldn't count for the team that loses, but I think absolutely the win should count. You should get that, you get the money, that's great. But if the team that wins gets like an extra win, and we all know that, especially in the West and at the top of the East, it's going to matter. Just an extra win matters a whole lot. So count it. Why don't we count it?
It should count. It's ridiculous that it doesn't count. It makes no sense to me. I know the cash prize is awesome for the players, and hopefully over the course of time, tradition builds and this becomes awesome for the fans as well. And I think it is. Like, I think for OKC or Milwaukee on Tuesday, they're going to celebrate it. It's going to, for the Bucks, it would feel like, oh, we are fully back from this horrible start to the season. We are contenders. We beat the best team in the West. That's what it would be. For the Thunder, it's, look at us. Best record in the West, and we won the NBA Cup. We don't even have Chet. We are the favorite in the West. Let's go, baby. This is something to signal who we are and we're here. It's something that matters, and that'll build over time. But the extra win sure would be nice, because then it makes it count more towards the standings and seeding, and it matters for the playoffs. I'm anti, the winner of the cup should get the 5th best draft odds or something like that. I'm against that. But to me, I think, like, let's say when we expand to 32 teams at some point, Vegas is added, Seattle is added, whatever the teams are. I think it would be sick. 32 team, single elimination, and each win in the tournament counts double. So like a cup win would count as 2. Now that's down the line. There's counter arguments to that it devalues the rest of the regular season, that the cup games matter too much. I understand the counter arguments to something like that, but I just think these games, if you make them matter more, and if it's just the championship that gives you double win, 2 wins towards the standings or whatever, so be it. I think that it should factor in. Why does it not? It feels like a big oversight to me.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Very strange, especially when, like you said, you got a back-to-back right out of this.
Yeah.
So weird. Weird.
Yeah.
Andrew, one last question. You're from Oklahoma, right?
Yeah. Yeah, born and raised.
So who did you grow up rooting for in the NBA when OKC wasn't in existence? Just curious.
I was a big Shaq guy. Big Shaquille O'Neal fan, like since like the early 90s, like that. I remember watching him when he was with the Magic and just like, who is that guy? Like, what's this guy all about?
So like Magic, Lakers, did you follow Shaq in his career, or did you stay as like a Lakers fan at one point?
There's a place in my office where I have like all my NBA jerseys that I had as a kid, like hanging up, and there's like every single Shaq jersey is hanging up in there. In fact,
when did it stop? Do you have like a Suns Shaq jersey, a Celtics Shaq?
I do. Quick story. So when I was in college, Shaq was coming through when he was with Phoenix, and he was doing this Feed the Children fundraiser, and it was a peanut butter fundraiser. So they wanted to get as much peanut butter in this short amount of time as they could. And so there was this contest to whoever brought the most peanut butter to this event got like this big grand prize. And so all my friends knew that I was a huge Shaq fan. And so this was, I mean, I'm old, but this was back whenever like Facebook groups was a thing. And so I created this Facebook group about me trying to get all this peanut butter. And what
kind of ask is this? Bring the most peanut butter?
Yeah, I'm telling you. Okay, so at the time, you could return peanut butter to like Walmart or whatever, and they would give you cash. And so I figured out where the cheapest peanut butter was. Shout out to Aldi. And the people would bring me like big jars of like premium peanut butter. I'm like, that's so nice, but I don't need that. What I need is quantity. And so I would take it back, I would get the money, and then I would go buy out Aldi of all their peanut butter. There was probably there's this one location in OKC where people could not get peanut butter for weeks because I would walk in and I would buy all of it. And so I ended up with 535 jars of peanut butter.
Who was second place? How many did they have?
I don't know.
20? 20? You went over the top?
Listen, I don't know. I don't know who got second place, but
nobody else showed up with any, right? Because you bought it all.
I was bound and determined to win this thing. I won it. And so I have this big signed Shaq Phoenix Suns jersey hanging in my office. And yeah, I mean, that's why I have a Phoenix Suns Shaq jersey. So, but yeah, huge Shaq fan to say the least.
It's incredible. Oh man, geez. Have you ever spoken to Shaq, interviewed him, told him that story?
I mean, obviously when I won the contest, I spoke to him, but I have not had a chance to speak with him since. Would love to talk to him about that. I'm sure he does not remember that at all, but it was a ridiculous time. And just like, I felt like I was walking on clouds, man. That was just like one of the best days ever.
You gotta get Shaq on Down to Dunk and ask him whose idea it was. Peanut butter? What? Is this your idea, Shaq?
I have a T-shirt that says the Peanut Butter Shaq Challenge on it.
Oh my God! Feels like his idea. Let's see what idiot shows up with the most peanut butter.
That's this guy right here.
Andrew, where can we find your stuff?
Yeah, go listen to the Athletic NBA Daily. It's a show that posts every single morning. It's really fun. It's just a quick recap of everything that happens in the league, hosted by my guy Dave DeFore. And then my show, the Saturday Slam and Jam, posts every Saturday on that feed. And then if you want more Thunder content, go listen to Down to Dunk.
Awesome, Andrew. You do amazing work. Thank you for joining today.